So dear friends, we are not only in the month of May, I would say a month of heat, month of hot, and month of hit, as it were. It's quite warm, though we have had some rains, but still perhaps the real rains haven't come. More than anything else, I know that many people at home, the traffic is increasing, and sometimes these traffic jams are also causing us much tension, especially when we have to go from place to place. Church-wise, I think it's a good month. Many of our churches are full of people. Many of the celebrations, marriages, weddings, and the other sacraments. I have also attended many confirmation in the church of the shrine of the infant Jesus. There was 300 children who got confirmed, who were conferred the sacrament of confirmation. Very nice. So let me start about the message of this week. The message is very much touching because it's an event in the life of Jesus which marks a milestone. We speak of the Ascension Sunday. The Ascension Sunday, we know what it means to ascend. Ascend means to go on top. To descend is to come down. And so for Jesus, this was a milestone in his life that he ascended into the heavens. Today's all the three readings speak about this ascension. The first reading from the Acts of the Apostles speaks about ascension. So also the second reading, Ephesians chapter 4, and the Gospel also gives us a witness, as it were, of the disciples who benefited from this ascension of our Lord. You know, the Feast of Ascension comes 40 days after Easter, rather 6 weeks after Easter. And this 40, as you know, is a very symbolic number in the Bible. 40 days of fast of Jesus, 40 years in the wilderness with Moses. And so 40 is a time of tried and tested and succeeded. Tried, tested and succeeded. And so in that sense, it's very important to know that for Jesus also, the 40 days of prayer that we know, very important for him in order to experience this time of testing, but at the same time success. And so these 40 days also for Jesus, perhaps to put together the success of his life, the success part of his life. You know, Jesus already was, I would say, attained the highest by his resurrection. But then someone could say that Jesus rose again. We have heard also of the bringing to life of Lazarus and some people who died also. But then it could be that these people, of course, were brought to life, but they died again. But Jesus with his ascension shows that he will never again die, because he goes and establishes himself as the one who has won victory over sin, over death, and now he is triumphantly living and lives forever. So therefore the ascension is a fact in Jesus' life to say that he has reconquered everything that was considered not possible. The conquest over the death, conquest over the sin, conquest over the whole world and the evil powers, as it were, that he now becomes the King of the universe by his successful ascension into heaven. So the first part of the ascension is this experience of Jesus as being reinstated. He was considered as nothing. He had emptied himself, but today he is filled with glory. And the first reading, the Acts of the Apostles, tells us that the disciples had witnessed Jesus disappearing in front of them or rising in front of them. The second reading also speaks about ascension in a different way. That one who ascends perhaps also means that he descends. And so this Jesus, in the letter to the Ephesians, St. Paul tells us that he descended into lower pieces, lower regions, lower places, lower regions to redeem all those who are held as captives. So therefore, as he was going to heaven, he also went down, perhaps those before him, all the prophets, all those holy people that perhaps were so far locked up as it were because the heavens were not opened, and Jesus takes them along with him. The gospel has another message, namely, the Jesus who has ascended into heaven sits at the right hand of the Father. The right hand is the hand of the power, the hand of activity, the hand that moves as it were. So therefore, Jesus sitting at the right hand means he is vested with power. And he uses this power, especially power of intercession, to intercede for all of us. And therefore, he prays for each one of us. We can address our prayers to him to say that he will surely intercede for us in the heavenly abode, in the presence of the Holy Trinity, the Father and the Spirit. Thirdly, the fact of the Ascension also gives the disciples perhaps inborn or new vision and new vigor to say that they also can spread the good news of Jesus' resurrection and ascension into heaven. And the gospel tells us that the disciples went about preaching, and the Lord was with them. The Lord was with them, which means Jesus is alive, and the Spirit of Jesus was moving with the disciples. The whole of the Acts of the Apostles is a beautiful account of how the disciples, with the power of Jesus, with the power of the Holy Spirit, went about fearlessly. The readings that we have in the mornings, especially from the Acts of the Apostles, the St. Paul, perhaps nothing and nobody can control him, nobody can tie him up. He's put into prison, and there are 2-3 perhaps gates that are there which are locked, but still he manages to come out, not of himself, but the power of the Spirit. So therefore, the disciples perhaps are confirmed in their vocation, confirmed in their announcing power, as it were, that they can also share in Jesus' ministry by proclaiming the word of God everywhere. And fourthly, their actions or their words are matched with the power that Jesus has given them. And the sentence here says that the Lord worked with them and confirmed their messages by accompanying signs. And what are the signs? The signs are the miracles. The miracles that happen at the announcement of the gospel, announcement of the good news for those who believe. Those who believe in this message of Jesus Christ, surely the signs come out, as it were, and the signs confirm that is the miraculous happenings in our life. So, my dear brothers and sisters, the Ascension comes before Pentecost, that Jesus, who has risen 40 days ago, is now ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father, interceding for all of us. And he gives us that Spirit in order to move ahead, proclaiming his gospel to the end of the world. Let us perhaps participate in this milestone event in the life of Jesus, in order that we also become his ambassadors to proclaim in victory of Jesus, first of all, in our own life. There's nothing that we need to be discouraged. Our life is of hope. We look up to Jesus, and he will surely intercede for us and give us the power. My second point here today is, what's called the World Day of Communication. The Church celebrates every year the feast of communication, the event of communication. And so the 58th World Day of Social Communication is kept up on this Sunday, 12th of May. And the Holy Father has released a beautiful message in keeping up with the times, in keeping up with the periods and the seasons, in keeping up with whatever is coming up in the world. Perhaps the Holy Father is most updated, because he speaks in this particular message of the social communication, World Day of Social Communication. He speaks about artificial intelligence and the wisdom of the heart. These are two different spheres, as it were. On the one hand, perhaps we make a lot of fuss about intelligence and artificial intelligence, but the Pope also says we have to match it with the wisdom of the heart. I will explain to you what perhaps the Holy Father has in mind. And so, first of all, the Holy Father says when he speaks about the heart, the heart has Blaise Pascal is to say, the heart has reasons, but the reason itself cannot reason. Meaning to say, the heart is always comes out with something new. The heart is always perhaps pumping out life, of course, and something lively, something full of life. And therefore the Holy Father says that, first of all, artificial intelligence is good. But then, as Christians, we do not reject any new innovations. We praise God, we praise the nature, we praise the human interventions and inventions. We take them, all of them are good. And therefore, but then we should take it in a value to say that they are made or they are created, they are perhaps manufactured for our service, that we may use them. It's not the other way about. The machines cannot be above men. The men perhaps make use of the machines, and therefore we do not reject any new innovations as such, but there is always the risk of rich technology but poor humanity. And that is why the heart, this Holy Father speaks of the heart, because the heart can always and should always be the prime object, or rather the one who directs the human beings and our persons and personality. And everything that is artificial, everything that is created, surely is very useful and at the service of human mankind, so that we can make use of it for the best purposes that we need. And so, speaking about what we call the opportunities and danger of the artificial intelligence, the Holy Father says the intelligence should not be manipulative. Any intelligence is always a gift, a charism. But then it does not try to control, it does not try to subjugate, it does not try to repress and suppress something. Intelligence is something that is flowing. Intelligence that is something that is inborn. And therefore, the Holy Father says that the intelligence part should not be a manipulation as such, but always subservient and to the use of human persons. The human person should use this artificial intelligence, the objects, the gadgets, and make use of them to the best use. It's not the other way about that. We cannot become slaves of these innovations, the artificial intelligence, the ways and means that it has been used, etc. We should be very much discerning, and this is very much important in the case of our children, in the case of the youth. So many of us, we speak now of addictions. Addiction is not only to alcohol. Addiction is also not only to drugs. Addiction is also not to pornography or perhaps evil things. Addiction is also to what we call the gadgets, the machines, and perhaps artificial intelligence in some way. We get addicted to it. And sometimes the Holy Father speaks of what's called hostile domination and distortion. Hostile domination by these gadgets of us, and at the same time domination. He also speaks about what's called cognitive pollution. There is so much of it, there is so much coming out from the intelligence and from the TV, from the online and the WhatsApp, etc. There is almost a cognitive pollution as such, and very often distortion of reality, fake narratives. We speak about disinformation. We also speak about deep fakes. You can almost take someone else perhaps acting or speaking or saying something, and you stick, or rather you put the face of another person, and in this way it is shown as reality. We have already had some instances where the actors or perhaps the big persons were made to say something, but it was not exactly they said, but it was superimposed by the putting of their face on someone else who said this and did this. So therefore, these are the dangers. But there is much good about artificial intelligence that the Holy Father says. First of all, to give us what's called a source and resource for our study, for our research. At a press of a button, perhaps you can get so many words, so many sentences, perhaps even correspondences at the press of a moment. There is so many sort of what we call tools nowadays. They call it Chat, GPT, Gamma, and so many others. And I am told that they can just put a small sentence and ask them to do some work for you, and they will prepare a letter for you. They will prepare a page. They will summarize it. They will translate it. They can even correct the grammar. You know how much of things that can be done in the intellectual world and especially in the research world. The artificial intelligence also helps us, and these gadgets also sometimes perhaps to scan the body to find out certain things, and also do certain operations or perhaps certain interventions in your body which the fingers or the hands cannot do, perhaps the machines can do, guided by the artificial intelligence. So these are the good things that can come out. So my dear friends, perhaps the Holy Father gives us a message, the good and the bad. We have the choice of choosing the good out of the artificial intelligence, or perhaps get ourselves addicted or get stuck with the bad things also. The technology and the innovations can bring in our life. We say this very specially, as I said, in order to see that your children and the youth are guided well, and at the same time they go to the next level of making use of these good things in order to enjoy their life, in order to get the best in their life. I now speak to you about a special day. How would I call it? Mother's Day. Mother's Day. You know, Mother's Day is celebrated in different countries, in different months and different dates. And it's not so much fixed on a one particular day. But then I just going through some books and magazines here and there, I found out that internationally the Mother's Day is celebrated on the second Sunday of May. Second Sunday of May. And so this year, the second Sunday falls on the 12th of May, the next Sunday. There's still time. But then those of you who would like to prepare, there's enough time to make your mothers happy. You know, I spoke about God's love. Mother is an embodiment of God's love. Perfect embodiment of God's love, because the mother has nothing in mind except for the sacrifice for the family. From the beginning of her marriage, as it were, she sacrificed for the family. First for the sake of the children, then the house, then perhaps for the husband. And till the old age, she goes on thinking. I don't think there is any day, I won't say any moment, that she doesn't think about her family, her think. This is the love and sacrifice of the mother. And so, I don't make it compulsory, but those of you who would like to celebrate Mother's Day, perhaps it's a beautiful love and expression that you can give to Mother. I don't have to say why you have to celebrate Mother's Day, perhaps on 12th or any other time, but celebrate it, first of all, because of the love and affection of your mother for you. Perhaps some mothers may not be alive, but the memory of them is enough for us to sort of churn into our hearts what our mothers have been to us. So therefore, the first is love and appreciation for our mothers. Secondly, we also remember the sacrifices that they have made, selfless sacrifice that they make. You know, it's an endless story. As I told you about the gospel, which speaks about, the distinction between friend and a servant. Mother are always friends. The mothers never keep count of their sacrifices of the others one, and therefore this is the way perhaps we can celebrate, we can remember to celebrate. Someone may ask how to celebrate. I don't think the elders will ask me, but the children may ask me, how do we celebrate the Mother's Day? First of all, go and hug your mother on that day. The first opportunity, Mummy, let her feel happy. Secondly, perhaps, I don't say, some gathering that you organize, some surprise that you give to the mother that day. Perhaps some flowers, I don't know, cakes, or even cards, some candles, something like that. And perhaps you are far away from your mother. Make it a point to call your mother. Make her happy. A surprise call and say, Mummy, I remember you. Someone said that today is Mother's Day. You may not be knowing, but for me, every day is a Mother's Day, and I wish you happy Mother's Day, and I thank you very much, Mummy. You can also perhaps send some cards, send some gifts. I don't know what the mother would like. And she is so, I would say, affectionate that anything that you give is a great gift for her. But be thoughtful and give her a special gift if possible to the mothers. And this is the way perhaps the Mother's Day also can create this bond and sustain this bond between the children, the husband, the father, the mother, the children. And so this bond of love and unity will also be strengthened by celebrating the Mother's Day. I make a mention of 13th of May in a passing way. I say a passing way because I have said often about what's called the apparition of Mother Mary at Fatima on 13th of May to 1917 for the first time. You know the story that these three small children, Jacinta, Francesco and Lucy, were grazing with their sheep perhaps in a place where there was a lot of grass, little far away from their houses, perhaps 1 or 2 kilometers away. And suddenly they find this vision of Mother Mary. In the beginning they are frightened, but then slowly they come closer and Mother speaks to them humanly as she would speak, a mother would speak to them. And they are so happy and they recite the rosary, and Mother Mary tells them to come again on the 13th of the following months, and the children go back. And the rest is history, that when they tried to come on the first time, there were not many people. The second time, there were more people. The third time, it was a law and order situation where so many thousands of people joined in. And surely, the fourth time, that was in the month of August, the civil authorities forbade them from going and put them in a sort of a children's prison so that they couldn't go on that day on 13th. But after they were released, they went on 18th. So therefore, the apparitions of Mother Mary to these three children begin on 13th of May. And every year we celebrate it as a Fatima Day. Perhaps we have many shrines. We have also shrine of Our Lady of Fatima here in Hoskote and also in Jalahalli and the other places also. So therefore let us pray to Mother Mary in a very special way. In this week in our Archdiocese, we make the choice or rather interview for our seminarians. You know, last few weeks we have been speaking about vocations. We have had certain gatherings and assemblies of our altar servers in different deaneries. And there have been good news for us that there are many boys who would like to become priests of the Archdiocese. And Father Adrian Mascarenhas, the rector of the Bhakti Bhavan, sent out forms and information to the fathers, and we are told that he has already received applications from about 20 to 25, the prospective candidates who perhaps would be selected for our seminaries. We were waiting for the results of the SSLC that happened just 1 or 2 days ago. And earlier, the PUC results had come, and of course, the others who had finished the graduation also, there are some candidates who are offering themselves. And so we will be calling them for the interview and choosing about 20 of them. Why only 20? Because we don't have much space in our Bhakti Bhavan or the minor seminary that we have to accommodate as many that come. So therefore, perhaps some will be left out. Some may not be may not be necessary for our diocese, but then we will not reject them. So this interview will take place on the 13th of May, and the seminarians, prospective seminarians, will be coming for the interview. And so those that are extra, perhaps those that are not required by us, will be called again on 20th of May. And that time we give them a chance to perhaps to go to some religious or perhaps some other dioceses that have need. And there are many other dioceses also who are very happy to have seminarians in order to study for them. Perhaps someone may ask, why do you need an interview as such? First of all, we want to see the candidates physically. We want to examine the candidates, their intention and their motive to become a priest. Perhaps motive is very important. Vocation is a spark that is lit in the life of these boys at their young age. As I said, many of them perhaps altar servers, looking at the altar, being close to Jesus, and being in that particular stage and state of their life, perhaps God also speaks to them. God also gives them what we call the motivation to become priests, religious, sisters, etc. Secondly, we would like to have the interview along with your parents, if possible, to have a look at their family. To look at their family. The vocation is always born in a family. And it's the parents are the important persons who encourage this. And therefore, we talk to the parents and see also whether they are also willing to send their children. Once when I was interviewing, I saw that there was a boy. He was the only son of his family. And could I call his parents? Because the boy was very enthusiastic, but I wanted to know whether parents would be enthusiastic, because having only one son and you're offering to the Lord, what will you do? I said, when you go in your old age, when you go into a crisis, when you fall sick, who will look after you? Because you have only one son, you are sending them to become a priest. And as a priest, he cannot come back 100 times to your house. He cannot fulfill all the needs. He cannot come from all the emergencies. They said, no, Bishop, we are giving our son. We trust the Lord that God will take care of us. And he has expressed his desire to become a priest, and we don't want to come in his way. And we know that when we do this sacrifice, God will also look after us. He's a priest now, and the family is so happy. And the mother told me, every time I have any difficulty, I call my son and say, son, this is a small difficulty in the family. And he says, Mommy, don't worry, I will pray for you. It's as good as we have this prayer ATM. You want to pray? Just ask your son, your daughter, who is a priest, and they will surely pray for you. Your prayers are answered, just as the ATM gives us notes, as it were. The ATM of God gives you graces and blessings also. Thirdly, we interview the seminarians in order to find out also from them their humanness, the human quality. We don't want them to become priests for a very high, lofty ideals, but to serve the poor. We ask them the question, are you ready to serve the poor, the sick? Because to see a priest in his cassock, in his white dress, to see a priest driving the motorbike perhaps, or even the car, staying in a big house, it's very nice. But then this is not always everything in our life. There are times when we are lonely. There are times when we are sick. There are times when we don't have much to eat and celebrate in the house. Perhaps some of the presbyteries are very poor. And more than that, the people are poor. Would you like to visit them? Would you like to look at them? And so we want to find out. Fourthly, a little of their intellectual capacity. A priest has to study different subjects, different languages. And especially English has to be good, because a language of communication. And so we try to find out if they are good enough in order to pick up and stand the strain of heavy studies. The priestly studies are quite heavy. So all these things we do in the interview, and I'm sure we will be very happy to select some of them. Pray for our Archdiocese, especially for the upcoming priests. This year we had 7 ordinations. And all these 7 priests will be going to the missions, 6 of them in the north and 1 to be there. And they are so happy. They are already communicating with the bishops of that area. Bishop, I am coming. what should I come, what should I bring? And the bishop, one bishop told them, you come with anything, but that will not be enough, because there is no water here, there is no electricity here, perhaps your phones also may not be working, you may not get your food in time, but this is missionary life, and they are happily prepared for it. I now speak to you about a topic that perhaps might look very strange to you. The wedding celebrations in our Archdiocese, perhaps everywhere. You know, wedding is the happiest occasion in the life of a couple, the boy and the girl. They look forward to their wedding. Yeah, and sometimes they plan for months together, perhaps some even years together. And the day comes when they have to celebrate. Of course, they have to celebrate it well. They celebrate with the church celebration, starts with the wedding, the sacramental celebration in the church, and then there is what's called the civic reception or the social celebration. You know, I would like to speak a little about the social celebration, which is very important, because it's a milestone in their life. It's a memorable day in their life. The photographs have to be taken. The bride has to be dressed well. The boy has to look well. The people have to come. There has to be good food. All these things are there. Why am I perhaps a little apprehensive? What I say is, perhaps nowadays I have seen many wedding celebrations which are just lavish, extravagant, and perhaps wasteful. You know, a couple who cannot afford, they are forced to celebrate it in this grand way, because this is the style. What will the people say if you don't have this, if you don't have that, if you don't have that big mantap, if you don't have so many flower decorations, if you don't have that much of, perhaps what will the people say? I would say, people perhaps would say that we need modest celebrations today. We have to realize that we should not waste our money. The celebrations are important, but then not so extravagant. So much of the food is wasted. So much of the decorations are wasted. It is just 2-3 hours, but then how much of the money is wasted? I know lakhs, and perhaps I don't say crores, but lakhs and lakhs. Very often, perhaps, not only the hall expenses, but also there are other expenses of what's called the decorations and the booking of the things, the sound, the light, and the flickering lights, and so many other things are there. I say two things. Number one is, what will the poor people do? Sure, the poor people should be contained, should be modest, but then in this rat race, in this what we call the competitive and consumeristic world, where everyone wants to see and to be seen, and therefore there is the temptation to go overboard. Perhaps the couple themselves may not want it, but there are some relatives, there are some friends who say that we have to do it. If you don't do it, why did you get married? Why did you call us? Why did you invite us? There must be a common understanding, a little of realization that enough is enough. This much is enough. So therefore, for this, I ask my brother priests especially to educate the people that if they cannot afford, make it a simple celebration. Make it a joyful celebration. And for that, we don't have to waste. You know, sometimes the food that is cooked, it is just wasted. If suppose the married couple, that they could afford perhaps a lot of expenses, but they themselves say that perhaps we'll restrict ourselves for this much. The rest of the money, let us give it to the poor. Let us give it for the children's education. Let us give it for those people perhaps who are still struggling. That would be a noble thing. You know, sometimes the rich people, there are many people who are noble, who do it, and generous also. But there are others who are caught up in this trap, as it were. I know there's a family who came to me, husband and wife, a few months ago. And of course, they were nice. The husband was not too well, so they had come to ask for certain help. And husband told me that he was not working because he was not keeping well, and the wife also not working. And suddenly he blurted out to say that we are paying the loans that we have taken. I said, when did you take the loans at all? You are a happily married couple. When did you loan? No, father. 6 years back when you got married. Of course, we could not afford all the celebrations, and our relatives and our people forced us to take the loans in order to make it a big affair. And the loans that we have taken 5 years back, we are still struggling. Every month, the payment that he was getting, half was giving go for the loans, and we ate something small thing and we finished. I said, how many more years you may take to pay off these loans? We don't know. It's still about 10 or 12 lakhs that we have to pay. And for that, perhaps we'll have to wait for another 10 years. I said, your marriage has started on this, what we call the loan facility. Yours is a borrowed loan marriage that you have celebrated. That's true, they said. And secondly, I tell my pastors also to say that perhaps why don't we think of what we call group marriages? Group marriage, 2 or 3 couples celebrate together. Of course, it means also sharing of expenses, and perhaps little modest way they can do it. I also speak of what we call mass marriages for the poor. That's surely it's a great celebration. I've attended many, where many people marriages take place in our basilica. We have it once a year, I think at the Novena of Our Lady, and in other places also. And this is the way we can control, we can help, we can educate. So I am all for modest weddings celebrated well. I am not for lavish, I am not for extravagant, I am not for wasteful expenses during the marriage. This is a small message from me. Take it if you want. Perhaps those people who have understood what I am trying to say will try to impress upon the people, and especially start with your own family, start with your own relatives, and perhaps you can pass on the message to the others too. Lastly, I speak of the jewels of the Archdiocese. I've explained these jewels are very strange. The jewels doesn't mean, of course, that is shining and perhaps flashing everywhere. Some jewels, as I said, they are hidden here and there. And these jewels, according to me, are not just a material jewel. Perhaps it's an institution. Perhaps it's a person. It's a monument. Or it's a movement. Or perhaps it's an activity that we do. Something that enriches our diocese. Something that enriches our Archdiocese and makes it shine for ourselves and for others. That I call the jewel of the Archdiocese. So this time I'm speaking about a certain jewel, and you might be surprised what is special about this jewel which Bishop is speaking about. I speak about St. Joseph's Institute of Skills that is placed in St. Joseph's School campus in Bryan Square. Institute of Skills. Or perhaps it's a big name, but it is helping the poorest of the poor. You won't believe that we have such big numbers now. And basically, it's a training facility for those that have not had what's called opportunity to be educated in the highest side. They were dropouts in their school. They could not go to the college. They could not score high marks. They could not go to big, perhaps, institutions. But they have the heart to say, I still want to do something. I want a small job. I still want to learn something. And so for these people, especially the dropouts, especially those who are at home, especially those who are discouraged, we give a new hope, a new life. And therefore it's called Institute of Skills. You will be surprised perhaps what's the motive, or rather the motto of this institute. Including the excluded. There are many who are excluded in our society. Those who have not passed their exams. Those perhaps who didn't realize that exam or studies was important. Those perhaps who made mistakes also in their life and didn't go to school or college properly. Or perhaps those who are naturally impeded because of sickness in the family. They were not allowed to study, they were not to go high. So therefore, all those who are excluded are now included. And the second motive is giving the best to the least. Giving the best to the least. So therefore, St. Joseph Institute of Skills, as I said, located in St. Joseph School campus in Bryan Square, has this motive to give the best to the people. It is run by the Archdiocese, and just now a very talented priest of the Montfort congregation, Father Deepak Joseph, is the director, and he's running this institute along with the help and support of so many, the public, the donors, the CSR people who are giving and helping him in order to bring it up. It was started, you will be surprised, this idea came to us at the time of COVID. At the time of COVID, many people lost their jobs. Even those who were able lost their jobs, not to say anything about those who were not able. And when the COVID perhaps was over, there were many people who were loitering about the streets, no income, and perhaps not even the world was such that the poor became more poor. And so at this time, we thought of this institute to help the poor, especially the dropouts, especially those who are confined to their houses. And therefore many girls, many women, many boys, many dropouts, when they were coming together, we got this idea. And so this institute had started in January 2021. Till now, about 1,100 were admitted and trained. And you'll be surprised to say, we have the exact number of those who found placement is 809 boys and girls. Of course, some of them were even elders. I saw at the time of prize giving, the woman was 42 years old and she had learned the machine, she had learned the tailoring, and she was so happy. And he says, now onwards, I know how to go about in my life. And so what are the courses that are conducted here? There are different courses, short-term courses, perhaps 3 months, 6 months. And these are intensive courses with the help of the experts, with the help of the instruments. And these who have been trained there, we send them perhaps to the factories, to the hospitals, to those places where their training is useful, and they get a very practical experience. And within 6 months, perhaps maximum 1 year, they become experts. And there are people who come on our campus to have interviews, and that's how 809 people were selected, and they are working, perhaps may not be a very high scale, but something like 15,000, 20,000, and they start climbing the ladder. So what are the courses that are conducted there? Hospitality course, for example, hotel management, how to arrange the table, how to do the little cooking, how to perhaps serve, how to be the waiters, how to be the stewards, how to be the cooks, the hospitality department, how to prepare the rooms where the big people or perhaps the people who come to stay in the hotel will stay. Secondly, beauty and wellness. There is a big demand for this, especially among the women, to see that their hair is cropped well, they have a small makeup, how to dress themselves, etc. So beauty and wellness. And thirdly, nursing aids. We don't say nursing as such, nurses as such, but nursing aids, those that help in the nursing aids. Many of the old people need these nursing aids at home to take them for the washroom, perhaps to make them sit, to feed them. And so these are simple things which the nursing aids can do. Fourthly, electrical and electronic. Repairing the mobile, perhaps the small things, gadgets, how to see the washing machine, how to perhaps put the generator. So these simple things that are taught to them. And so these electricians or electronic people will be useful. Office administration, for example, the front desk, how to answer the phone, how to perhaps make a call to somebody, how to take down the notes of someone who has come. So office administration of a simple manner. Also, we have what's called fashion designing. The fashion designing, how to prepare the baby dresses, how to prepare the dresses for the children, how to perhaps to impress upon the colors, the sizes and shapes of the things that they prepare. And finally, pre-primary. We don't call it primary, but pre-primary. For example, how to look after the children in a creche, how to perhaps bathe the children, how to be perhaps even what we call the aides at home, the babysitting at home. And these are small things perhaps which also help the people, those who are not educated much. They don't need to educate. For none of these, there are people who are not even finished the 10th standard, but picked up these courses, picked up these skills, and now they are very grateful to us. And so I am also very grateful to Father Deepak Joseph, who has started this, and he also gives hostel accommodation for both boys and girls. More than 100 boys and girls are there in separate quarters, and therefore for the poor the fees are very low. I am told 5,000, 6,000, perhaps maximum 10,000, and concession is given to anyone who asks. There are some who have done the courses freely, but I am told by Father Joseph that some of them come back and say, you gave me the course freely, but I am earning now today 15,000, 20,000. Can I pay back my fees? Can I give something to the institute? So grateful, and therefore I call it a jewel because it is helping many poor people of the Archdiocese.
The Shepherd's Voice, which is being presented by our beloved Archbishop, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, the Archbishop of Bangalore, who takes so much of interest and concern in order to bring the various topics, the contextual aspects, in order to inform, educate, and catechize all of us, the priests, the religious, and faithful of this vast Archdiocese. And I'm sure you are enjoying this program, Shepherd's Voice, and I request each one of you to share with your other colleagues, friends, and family and relatives, near and dear ones, so that everyone in this Archdiocese can be more closer to listen to the Archbishop on this Shepherd's Voice, the weekly feature. My dear friends, as I've always told, that this is a wonderful platform wherein we can connect to the Shepherd of this Archdiocese, wherein he brings in the interesting topics in order to increase our devotion and love towards God, and also to know the spiritual matters that concerns our faith. In a very special way, you are most welcome to ask your questions, queries, and you can send them to us at archdblr@gmail.com, and you will also see our mobile number in and through which you can connect with our media center, Ave Studios, and the Archdiocesan Communication Center. Please do write to us your feedback, your opinions. Thank you. Continue to watch and continue to share with others.